Hey guys, what's going on? It's Adam, the science student here, and today we're going to be talking about the save Vase chart. Save and Vase are interchangeable. I like using the Vase chart, but you could draw it out as a save chart as well. I like the Vase chart, however. And what is it? So it's going to be the cranial nerves 1 through 12, and they're going to be placed in different sensory systems. So it's different sensory systems in our body allow us to touch, feel, see, and there are senses. And to which one of these and where do they belong? So we're going to be going over that in just a moment. We're going to go through a key and what we're doing. And sensory systems, we're going to draw out 8 in the chart, but one's going to be removed. So we really have 7 sensory systems. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to go through all of that too. So let's do a key. All lives, we need keys for everything in life. So this is going to be a key for our save Vase chart, or our Vase chart in my case. S is for special. And special, when you see special, keep in mind it's for face. So special is face when you see that. G is for general, so it's kind of everything outside our face. And then we're going to have S again for somatic, so don't get those confused. So somatic, and then V for visceral. And then we're going to have A for afferent, and then E for efferent. And keep in mind, afferent is sensory, efferent is motor. So afferent, sensory, efferent, motor. We need to know those, so that's very important. And these are going to be separated in the brain by something called sulcin limitans. So sulcus limitans. And that's just the area of our brain and divides the afferent and efferent quadrants or areas. So we don't have a mixture of motor and sensory. And I'm going to highlight here the important parts of this key, or the different parts, I guess. So special and general will be in column 1, somatic and visceral will be in column 2, and afferent and efferent will be in column 3. And what does that mean? So these are going to be all mixed to make different systems, sensory systems of our body. So we're going to have, once again, in column 1, it's going to be either special or general. In column 2, it's going to be somatic or visceral. In column 3, it's going to be afferent or efferent. So I'm going to give you guys a little example. So we could have our special, visceral, efferent, which will be a sensory system. And then I'm going to give you guys another example, and this is going to be the system that is not in our body, so that way we know when we're making our chart that we can cross it out and eliminate it. And that's going to be our special somatic efferent system. That is not in our body. SSE is not in our body. We're going to include it in our chart just because it's easy to draw out and we don't want to make a mistake on our chart, but we cross it out. It's eliminated. It's not really there. And once again, we're going to put it in our chart just because we're drawing it out. It's pretty easy. And it's easy to remember as well. So we're going to draw our vase. So I make a mistake here, but it's going to go counterclockwise. I'm about to correct the mistake. But you're going to draw vase. So V-A-S-E. Or you can do it interchangeably, and you go start off with the S. Save, S-A-V-E. Either way, you can make it either way you want. So I like vase. So V-A-S-E, and then the afferent and efferent quadrants are separated by the sulcus limitans. So don't forget that. That is a little important tad bit of information, but still. So then you fill up your chart. So there's 2 of each in each of these quadrants. So we're going to go V, 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 V. We start with our second column first. So we are going visceral on top, and then somatic on the bottom. And keep in mind, there's a somatic right there too. Then we fill out our third portion of our column, and we're going to go afferent on the left side because that's where our A is at, and then efferent on the right side because that's where our E is at. So for afferent and efferent, and that's our third portion of the column. And we could look back and see in column 1, now we just need to fill up special or general. And special and general are going to be included with each of our quadrants. So one of them is going to get a special, and one of them is going to get general on each of these. So you can see I'm drawing out each of our systems. And then keep in mind we cross out our special somatic efferent because it's not a part of our body, it's not there. So that's important to note. So let's go over to our special visceral afferent, and it's going to be involved with our taste and smell. So it's going to be our taste and smell for ingestion, and that's going to be very important. So that's what gets our body prepped up for meals. So we're going to have cranial nerve 1, our olfactory nerve. We're going to have cranial nerve 7, which is our facial nerve. We're going to have cranial nerve 9, which is our glysopharyngeal nerve. and then cranial nerve 10, our vagus nerve. So cranial nerve 7, 9, and 10 are going to involve our tongue. So you can imagine that's for our taste. Cranial nerve 1 is our olfactory nerve, so it's going to involve our nose. So that's going to be our first smell. So I'm going to highlight here, cranial nerve 1 for our smell. And then cranial nerve 7 does your anterior portion of your tongue. Cranial nerve 9 does your posterior section of your tongue. And cranial nerve 10 does your roof of your tongue, just for extra information. And cranial nerve 7, 9, and 10 are always going to be grouped together except for our general visceral afferent area. But everywhere else, if you see a 7, you're going to group it with 9 and 10, cranial nerves 9 and 10. Our general visceral afferent system is going to have chemoreceptors, and it's going to be a part of our enteric nervous system and our sensory, because remember I said afferent is a part of our sensory system. And it's going to involve our blood pressure as well. So that's extremely important. And this is the only case where we don't have 7, 9, and 10 grouped together. We're just going to have cranial nerves 9 and 10. So our glissopharyngeal 9 and our vagus nerve 10. So cool, pretty easy. That's the only exception where they're not grouped together. So our special visceral efferent system is going to be involved with our pharyngeal arches and the pharyngeal arches. So this one I think is the hardest to remember. This quadrant is the hardest to remember, but we'll get through it. So cranial nerve 5, and then we're going to have cranial nerve 7. And like I said before, cranial nerve 7 is linked with cranial nerve 9 and cranial nerve 10. And then we're also going to have cranial nerve 11, but I'm going to draw it in just a second. So cranial nerve 5, 7, 9, and 10. 7, 9, and 10 are linked together usually. So 1, 2, 3. So these are our pharyngeal arches. So cranial nerve is linked with cranial nerve 5 is linked with pharyngeal arch 1. Cranial nerve 7 is linked with pharyngeal arch 2, and so on. And then cranial nerve 11, which is our spinal accessory nerve, is linked with pharyngeal arch 6. And there's no 5th pharyngeal arch, or at least no functional one. I like to think of cranial nerve 9 because it's glissopharyngeal. So if you know you have 9, you know you're going to have 7 and 10. So all you got to remember is 5 and 11. So our general visceral efferent system is going to be involved with our enteric nervous system and the motor portion, and it's going to have our paracrine glandular secretions involved. So that's kind of cool to note, and that's kind of getting our stomach and our gastric acids ready to digest and move food through. And it's going to be involved with cranial nerve 3, cranial nerve 7, which is a big indicator that there's also going to be 9 and 10. So cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, and 10. So pretty easy there. And cranial nerve 3 is our oculomotor. So when we see food, we get our body ready to eat as well. So they're all motor, not too bad. And then we're going to get below. So it's motor for hunger and GI tract. So that makes sense. So keep in mind there's no special somatic efferent. So there's negative, we draw a big X. There's none of that. There's no system. Not that system, at least. So our general somatic efferent signals motor. General, that means we're talking about our body, so, or not the face really. So what's going to be that? That's pretty much all our motor cranial nerves. So think of ones that are strictly motor. That's what our cranial nerves will be belonging to this group. So that will be that. And the cranial nerves, it's going to be cranial nerve 3, like we talked about before. It's oculomotor. That's for our eyes, so we can move our eyes. Cranial nerve 4, which is our trochlear nerve. Cranial nerve 6, which is our abducens nerve. And then we have our usual. Oh no, not our usual. My bad. Pardon me. Thought we were gonna do 7 again, but we have our cranial nerve 11, which is spinal accessory, and then cranial nerve 12, which is our hypoglossal nerve. So they're all motor, which is interesting. So now we have my favorite portion or quadrant of the chart, the special senses. So special senses, keep in mind special is for face. So our special senses, so everything here except for taste, because we've already covered taste. So it's gonna be our smell, our hearing, and our vision. So, and our balance, because our hearing or our ears work together for balance. Like I mentioned before, our taste and smell, our taste is already covered. Our smell is covered too, but it's going to be included with this one as well. So which cranial nerves will be here? Well, when I think of smell, cranial nerve 1, olfactory comes to mind, so it's cranial nerve 1. And then cranial nerve 2, which is our optic nerve, and cranial nerve 8, which is our vestibulocochlear nerve or audible nerve. Audible nerve is much easier to say, but in test time, I'm pretty sure they're going to ask about vestibulo-ocular. That's probably their favored. So cranial nerve 1, olfactory nerve is used with smell. Cranial nerve 2 is going to be used with our optic nerve, so it's going to be our sight, of course. It's pretty easy. And then cranial nerve 8, our vestibulocochlear nerve, is going to be for our hearing and our balance. There's a fluid in our ears that allows us to balance and realize our balance in relation to other things around us. So that makes it pretty easy. So 1, 2, and 8 are what we're going to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about general somatic afferent because I didn't write down their functions when I was drawing this out. But general somatic afferent is involved with our touch, pain, temperature, and proprioception. Proprioception is like our ability to have our hand up here, I can have my eyes closed, and I know where my fist is in relation to my body. I get the whoa, I can do anything I want, I can whip, but I know where my hand is in relation to my body without looking at it. So that's our proprioception. And these are going to be all our cranial nerves except for 1, 2, and 8. This is why this is my favorite quadrant, because as soon as you know 1, 2, and 8 is for a special somatic afferent, you could say everything else is for our general somatic afferent system. So very cool. So that's pretty much sums it up. I'm going to go back over, show the camera back over all this stuff if you missed anything. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I appreciate it. So cool. Study on.